Hello and welcome to today's video. This is going to be my best books of 2022 so far, but it's not like a top 5 or a top 10 or anything like that. It's like the best book of each individual month. So my best book from January, my best book from February, so on, which means it's also not going to spoil my eventual best books of the year, because let me tell you, I read 3 books in January that trump almost all of the others, but obviously I've only picked one from January, so there's still extra, and yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. Hopefully I hope you enjoy. Yeah, this is just my favorite book from each month, and they're not necessarily 5 stars. I think a couple of them only got 4.5, but these are just the books that have stuck with me the most, that I've enjoyed the most, and that have got the best ratings. So that's kind of what I'm going to be showing, and I'm literally just going to be showing the book, talking about it a little bit, and that's going to be that. However, because there's only 6 books to talk about, and I don't think I'll be saying too much about them, especially a couple of them are last books in the series, so it's just not going to work out perfectly to talk about them. Before starting this, I also decided to have a little look at some statistics, and essentially I use Corpile to not necessarily rate my books, but just to keep a track of everything, all the statistics, and every month I get a few of the statistics out and put them in my reading journal. But I don't really look at them that much. At the end of the year I think they're really interesting to look at, but I haven't looked at them throughout the year. So what I've done is I've literally just picked out the 6 books that are in this video and put them in a separate sheet, and looked at kind of what they represent. Are they representative of my reading? Are they, you know, what are they showing? Is this good? Is this bad? Am I happy with this selection when it comes to statistics in terms of diversity, genres, all that other stuff really? And I just thought it'd be interesting to plop that in at the start. So I'm just going to give you a few stats about the 6 books that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So first of all, there are 6 books, obviously, and they total 2,640 pages. I read 4 of them physically and 2 of them using audiobooks. However, both of them that I read with audiobooks, I also read along at bits as well, but I just don't put too much information in my statistics. Just how I read them the most, and I read them using audiobooks the most, but I did also enjoy reading along with them for these particular 2. So yeah. In terms of genre, 2 of them are contemporary, which is quite shocking. 1 is dystopian, and then 2 are fantasy, but technically 3 are fantasy because 1 of them is just dated a graphic novel, but the actual genre of the graphic novel is also fantasy. And then in terms of ages, what age the books are actually aimed at, 1 is middle grade, 3 are YA, 1 new adult, and 1 adult, so pretty varied. I'm a bit shocked that 3 of them are YA, to be honest. I've been reading less YA this year, but yeah, obviously they're still topping the other books that I'm reading. And a statistic that I thought was really cool, because I've been struggling in terms of making sure that all of my books have representation this year. I'm trying to read the books I already own, so it's not really something I've been necessarily prioritising when it comes to picking the books. But all 6 of these books have got some form of LGBTQIA+ representation in them, which I'm really happy with. Obviously a good book is a good book, but it does make me happy that these books are representative of a large variety of people, especially because I have been reading a lot of books that have been on my TBR for 5, 6, 7 years. They haven't necessarily had the representation in them, so I don't know, it just makes me happy that these books that are kind of top of what I've been reading do have that representation. And 3 of them also have some form of disability representation as well, which again is something I think is so important, and it's so difficult to find in books. I really struggle to find out books that I'm interested in that have disability representation, especially because if they do, it often doesn't say, so it is a bit more difficult. But 2 of them have representation in terms of a physical disability, and 1 of them is a representation in terms of a mental health issue that is classed now as a disability due to the long-term effects of it. And yeah, I am happy with only 50% of them being that, because they are so difficult to find. I was actually really shocked that it was 50%, to be honest. My not too many spoilers here, but my overall disability representation pie chart for the entire year, not looking great. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting statistic. 2 out of the 6 books have POC authors, and then 4 of the 6 authors are women and 2 of the authors are non-binary. And for both of these statistics, I'm okay with, like, they're both not bad, but I do want to make sure that I'm reading diversely, and I would like to, you know, hope that by the end of the year the POC is like more than a third, because that just makes sense, and there is more diversity in terms of like who the authors are. But honestly, I already know that's not a thing. It's not something I've been prioritising when picking the books off my shelves this year. A lot of the new books coming in are more of what I'm wanting to read, but I still want to read these older books that have been sat on my shelves for ages. So yeah, that's just how it is, unfortunately, but it is something I want to improve in the future. 4 of the authors are new to me, like I've not read from before, and 2 of the authors I'd read from before. And the 2 that I've read from before are actually the 2 where it's like books in series, so obviously I've read them from them before because I've read the other books in the series. So yeah, having said about series, 3 of the books are books from series and 3 of the books are standalones, which is quite shocking. I normally do tend to read series a lot more than standalones, so yeah, it's quite good that the standalones are still making an impact enough to get on this list, I guess. And then the last thing I thought would be interesting stats wise is the publication year. So one of these books was published in 2014, one of them in 2017, one of them in 2018, one of them in 2020, and 2 of them in 2021. So yeah, I don't know if that means anything, but I just thought it was an interesting statistic. So let's get into the actual books. So for January, my favourite book of that month was Winterkeep, and honestly I struggled to select this. As I said at the start, 3 books that I read in January were absolutely amazing. They were like top tier books, like will definitely make it onto my favourites of this year, and honestly could become all-time favourites, and this was one of those 3, but I did struggle picking between them, but this is the one I ended up going with. So Winterkeep is the 4th book in the Graceling Realm series. It is the latest book to be published, although I do believe we are getting book 5 later this year, which is very exciting. And this book was just amazing. Like, I gave it 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing. There were so many perspectives in this, so many things to keep a track of, so many different sides. And I've read the first 3 books in this series, obviously, but all 3 of those very much I feel like could be read as standalones. They're really good, really enjoyed them, like still like a favourite series definitely, but this one was just even more. It was such a step up from the others, and it really felt like this was the first book where it felt like a continuation of the series, like there was more going on, there was a lot more to consider, and I think this is just classed as like fantasy, not like high fantasy, but the amount of politics in this, the amount of different worlds, the amount of different people who, like, some of them we've met before, we know them, we know if we like them, if we don't like them, if we trust them, but there were so many new people that we knew nothing about, and we really needed to figure out this world, and I was completely sucked in. I read it and I just kept reading and I kept reading, and I don't know how long it took me to read this, but it wasn't long, and it's a large book. It's like over 500 pages. So yeah, I can easily say that this was, well, my favourite book in January. I made that decision. I think this was my favourite book from January, and yeah, would 100% recommend. Then in February I ended up reading Station 11. Now I only gave this 4.5 stars. I don't know why, honestly. I don't ever tend to go back and like change my ratings because I gave them that rating for a reason. But I feel like this is one of the books that at the end of the year I might increase it to a full 5 stars rather than the 4.5. And I will also say this audiobook was absolutely amazing. I listened to this audiobook but then like read along at times as well, and it was so good. There's so many things going on, there's so many things to keep a track of and try and figure out, and there's all these people, and are these the same people, are these different people? Oh my gosh, so much. And I really feel like I read it at a good time. I read it when COVID numbers were starting to go down. I know they're going up again at the moment, but like they were going down and it looked a bit more promising. I don't think I could have read this peak pandemic, is what I'm trying to say, because it is about a pandemic, and we have the timeline of, you know, the day this pandemic starts, the day it hits, that, you know, and we follow that. We also follow some perspectives from 10 years previous to that, what was going on, what are people seeing, and then we also follow a perspective 20 years after this pandemic hit, and so many things have changed. Like, it's crazy. Like, this is a true dystopian book. Yeah, it honestly, it follows so many people, and I feel like any way that I explain this will not give it as much as it's worth. And I don't even have a favourite perspective. I think that's the thing that's so amazing for this. So many books you read and it's like, they're multiple perspectives, but you've got a favourite, you've got one you prefer, you've got one you want to go back to. But this I didn't, because every perspective, and every time it was changing perspective, we're not only learning more about that and what was going on there, but we're also learning more that was tying all these previous things that we've learned together. And what I expected from the book starting it and what this ended up being by the end, completely different. Yeah, I would 100% recommend this. It was great, it was amazing, and I really would recommend the audiobook as well if you do like audiobooks. I found it really engaging and like really easy listening, easy to go along with. Then for March, I'm actually picking a graphic novel, and this is a very easy pick in terms of I knew I was picking this, but there are 3 graphic novels in this series and I read them all pretty much back to back, and I wasn't 100% sure which one to pick, but honestly the first one sucked me in so much. And I do think the first one, not necessarily in terms of plot, because obviously each one we develop and we learn more, but the first one just sucked me in. These characters, like, you know, graphic novels, they're not that big. They, you know, you don't learn that much in each individual one. You don't know as much about characters as you would from like a traditionally written novel. But these characters sucked me in. I wanted to know more. I wanted them to have good lives. I wanted everything to be good. And that was The Tea Dragon Society. This is so good. I would 100% recommend this. It's actually a middle grade graphic novel. It is, you know, for like middle grade children, which in the UK it's like 8 to 10, but like a bit before and a bit after, depending on like reading level and all this sort of stuff. I don't really know, but middle grade. The book was cute and simple, but also had so much more going on that wasn't that simple, and I don't know if you'd get everything out of this book as a child as I did, but I found it so amazing. And also the artwork in this was just top notch. Let's find some. Well, even just this first page, the like heading for chapter 1, like that alone is absolutely lovely. But let's just flick to a random page. My personal favourite pages are the more purpley coloured ones. For instance, like this is more of a pinky page, obviously you can see that, but this is just so good. It's so cute, it's so nice. Like this is more of like, these are like the colour tones that are the most present, I'd say. But oh my gosh, all of the artwork, so good. Such a cute story, such a lovely story. And yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it, but essentially tea dragons are a thing. They are little tiny dragons that produce tea from leaves that grow in their horns, and there are certain people who look after them, and we follow along with that and so much more. So that is that one. I know I haven't said a lot about it, but honestly, like, it's just great and it's so short. I wouldn't want to spoil it for anyone, because knowing so little, you get so much out of it. And then in April, I read Yolk by Mary H.K. Choi, and this is my first Mary H.K. Choi book, and I need to read more. This was great. Like, I don't read a lot of contemporary, but I feel like this is a type of contemporary that I like, and I think I'm going to enjoy finding more of it. In the book we have 2 sisters. Okay, it says on the back, so like I don't class this as a spoiler, but I do think it's quite a big plot point, so if you wouldn't read the synopsis of the book, skip forward like 20 seconds. One of the sisters gets cancer and needs the other sister's help throughout that, and that's kind of like the main point, but there's so much more going on in her family, friends, relationships, like housing situations, job situations, mental health. Like I don't know how to put into words how much this book explored, but did it in such a natural way where like it didn't feel like there was loads going on until you really thought about it afterwards, about like how many different things you've just read about. And it was amazing. Like, this is like the only like emotional books that I've read this year. This is the only book that's really made me excited is the wrong word because of the subject matter. Excited is the wrong word, but I just want to read more from this author. Like, I have felt that with other books, but not contemporary. And I'm just like, this was so good, this was so amazing. I need to read more, I need to know more, I need more. Like, this is a standalone book, I'm never going to find out more about these characters, but I want to. Like, yeah, there's so many things, and it does it so well, and yeah. Read it if you haven't, but check trigger warnings first. Obviously check trigger warnings for all of these books that I'm talking about, but especially this one, do check trigger warnings. Then in May I read h.eather.e.lizabeth. I don't know why I waited so long to read this book. I've had it ages, I've known about it even longer, and I haven't read it until now, but I'm so happy that I did. I went into this not knowing a lot. Obviously I'd read the back, and based on what you read on the back, I really thought this book was just going to be a romance that was alright and a bit fluffy, and I wanted to read it because people whose ratings I trust that are similar to mine have read this and enjoyed it, so I was like, I think I could enjoy this, you know. And obviously the subject matter and the topics that I knew were kind of going to be explored from the back are important, and I wanted to read it, and I was like genuinely excited when I picked it up, when I brought it, but I just kept putting it off. But this also wasn't just a fluffy romance. There was so much going on in this book, so many aspects of it, and yeah, like a romance was definitely always there in some way, whether it be in the background or not. And it did end with like a satisfying ending, like a good moment, you know, you wanted that romance to happen. But it explored so many other things as well. Like, a lot of it was to do with friendship, even just like falling out, family, and like acceptance. And there was also, I mean, I think in the book it's described as bullying, but I honestly think it was like further than bullying. It was like true hate crime, honestly. But that was also a thing, and like a mystery based around that. Like, obviously it's not a mystery book, but you know, like there was this nagging thing the entire time of like, who has done this? And exploring that, especially for our main character, clearly, who's done this to them. Like, yeah, so much. And there was like mental health explored in here, but also just like groups and finding your people and being able to talk. It was so good, it was so great. I gave it 5 stars. I'm really happy I read it, and again, just another read I'd recommend to anyone, which obviously for all of these that's going to be the case because they're my top books, so I don't know why I keep saying it. And last but not least, we've got June. June was a bit of a difficult one to pick, not because of having too many books to pick from, more in terms of a lot of the books I gave high ratings to were in the same series, or at least from the same author, and it was very difficult to distinguish between them which one I definitely liked best. Now, the one I've chosen I'm pretty happy with. I think I've made a good choice. It's the last book in the series, and so much happened in this and so much came together, and that is Kingdom of Ash. This is the last book in the Throne of Glass series. It's a chunker, so much happened in this, so many things go on, so many things happen to everyone, and then everyone comes together, and then things happen and more things happen and everything happens, and I can't say a thing about this book because even if you've read book 1, I can't even tell you names because everything's changed, everything's different. I can't talk about this book at all except for to say this was definitely the best book in the series. Everything came together in this book, and like there were moments in other books that I enjoyed more. Like there were things that I really enjoyed discovering for the first time and learning about, but all the things that happened in this book, all the things that like came together, like oh my god, so many characters, so many perspectives, but so many perspectives that I like cared about and I needed to know about and I needed more of, and this book did all of that. It was a good ending. It's difficult to talk about even in terms of like more stuff, but yeah, I can't say anything. Basically I can't say anything, but this is the last book in the Throne of Glass series, and if you haven't read it I would really recommend. And even if you have like started Throne of Glass and you've read a couple, even if you just liked it, didn't love it, if you liked it, I'd say continue on, because this series, every single book, it improves so much with, and every single book is like a completely different book from one another. It's honestly crazy, and I really enjoyed this. That is the last book I'm talking about. So yeah, those are the 6 books that are like top of the list for every month. Do I have a favourite out of all of these? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know who I'd pick that, honestly. probably Winterkeith, but there's so many others that could top it. I don't know, it changes every day, and there's so many books that I didn't get to talk about in this video because I was only picking one book from each month that were also top books. I've had such a good reading year. I honestly, like, my 4 stars, 4.5 stars and 5 stars is like most of my pie chart. Most books have been getting good ratings. Like, most books have been getting amazing ratings, and I'm really learning a lot more about my reading style this year. Obviously there's still been some flops, but yeah, this reading year has been amazing so far, and it just honestly keeps getting better and better. Like, we're mid-July now, and the books and what I'm reading just seem to keep improving, getting better, and I am so happy with everything I've been reading, everything that's been going on, and yeah, I can't wait to make this video at the end of the year and see what my, like, I don't know how many it will be, top 10, top 12, top 20, I really don't know, but my top books of the year is going to be crazy and so difficult to figure out. I can't wait for it. So yeah, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a like if you liked it, subscribe down below if you'd like to see more content like this, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye.